Hello, Julia Jones, and welcome to the podcast. It's lovely to see you again. It's been a while.
It's lovely to see you again as well. It has been a while. I think
Yeah.
probably over a year.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's great to see you, and thanks so much for being a guest on the podcast. You're actually the first person I've spoken to on the podcast for a break since June this year. So thank you very much. Julia, just to sort of introduce you, and then I'll ask you to kind of explain the business. So you've been in sales for most of your career as a sales leader, and then also you've trained and you've managed sales teams. But you founded Altezza People UK, which is a people development company that uses equine support, if I can put that into a nutshell, if that's okay. And I've had the pleasure of attending one of your discovery sessions, which, as you say, was probably well over a year ago, which was insightful. It was fascinating. I didn't know sort of expectations when I attended, but the outcome was very interesting, and I learned a lot from that. So I can see, how teams and individuals can benefit from this in its entirety. So if you could, the concept's very intriguing. So if you could just share a little overview of the business, explain how the horses became a part of this sort of experiential business model, and what role they play for you, and then also for the people that come and visit you.
I don't think you've left me anything left to say now.
Come on, there's loads to say.
So I think it's fair to say that for a very long time, I have been fascinated by people development and what gets people to want to perform, to do the things that give them the most joy. 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to walk away from corporate, and if I hadn't had my own experience being coached with horses probably a decade before that, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now, which sounds crazy, but I guess my focus now is, as you say, people development, but the horses, actually their role is to help humans to be more human. And we are reconnecting people every day with their non-verbal communication. The horses read it so well and help us to understand what's going on inside us before we've even created a conscious thought. So that, backed with science and the way that our brains love to learn, we work with teams and individuals from all over the country to help them to improve their communication, their team performance, and everything associated with it, to put it in a nutshell. So teams come out to us, stand in fields with horses, and that's really where the magic happened. A bit like your experience when you joined us a while back.
It's very energetic, isn't it?
Yeah.
The horses sense changes in you and your thoughts. And I think in your story on your website, you explain about, a thought that you had in your head after a question was asked, and the horse reacted to that and sort of backed away. I love the fact that, energy is everywhere. You were connected to everything, really, other living organisms with that sort of energetic field. And like you said before, it's scientific, that is a thing, but until you actually experience that, it is difficult to describe, and it is difficult to sort of appreciate yourself. So I think, everybody should be able to have a session like this, for themselves and for teams.
Yeah. There was yesterday, we had a team development day. And there was one point where a group of 4 gentlemen walked into one of the fields to say hi to the horses. And the purpose was to consider connection and where they felt drawn personality-wise. So which horse did they feel they connected with? That was really to mirror back their approach and their intent in regard to that relationship. And what we observed was the horses completely disappeared. They just walked away.
All of them,
every single one of them. Yes, they walked away, leaving this particular group in the field thinking, wow, that was great, wasn't it? What was interesting was that they were there and their intention became, well, we'll go and stroke a horse. What they had forgotten was, within the connection with each other, the objective was to reach out and to understand, how our nonverbal communication has an impact on our relationships. So when we debriefed it, as it turned out, their intention was they were together and they were talking to each other. From the horse's perspective, they felt that they were surplus to requirements, so they walked away.
Right.
So you have to kind of think about, well, how often does that happen? How often do you then stay with the people that are familiar and comfortable, as opposed to going out and making new relationships? So they found it very difficult to fathom until we had debriefed that and thought about where else that happens, where else has it been noticed in the past, and moving forward, if we're looking to make better connection, how we could change our approach to make it more impactful and more acceptable for both parties.
Definitely.
Every experience is completely unique, and the horses so much better facilitators than I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you were talking then and explaining the situation, I thought that mirrors a networking situation in business where, you go into a room, and if there's people that look as though they're having a conversation that's in full flow, they know each other, there seems to be a sort of energy around them that's positive. It's very difficult to walk up to that and try and be a part of that. So you probably just walk away and go somewhere else, which is exactly what you've just described. The horses.
Yeah,
Fascinating.
it is, and it always surprises me. The horses, they work at liberty in the main, and we have 7. So we're out in nature. We have six acres. We also have a bird now. It's a jackdaw that visits, which is helped me to overcome my phobia of birds. Yeah, so we're out in nature, but the horses are completely at liberty for the majority of the time. So they select who they want to connect with. So depending on the needs and the requirements. So I've seen working with a younger person who was struggling to build relationships, and 2 of my big horses started to play, and it was quite, for horses, when they start to play, it can get, you don't want to get in the middle of it because it can get quite dangerous. But he didn't understand the danger of being in between them when they were nipping and tussling, and being able to explain to him that we don't have to stay in situations that feel uncomfortable. We can remove ourselves and set our own boundaries so that we have the best outcome for us and allow others to go on to do whatever they need to do. But we have choices. We can set boundaries, and we can also walk away. Was just really helpful to the situation that became really important to his learning on that day.
Yeah, and I suppose it makes it quite contextual then for somebody to understand, and they're in this situation, and they see, they hear, they kind of feel what the horse is doing, and then you've kind of got some bones then to talk about, to put the meat on, shall we say, for the situation. So and everybody's experience is different. I was going to ask you how horses can help our personal growth, which I think you've touched on with some of the examples that you've mentioned, but and with the 7 horses as well, there's lots of choice there as to what may happen, and then what the individual will gain from that. And I think for me, when I came, it was very much a sort of self-awareness, which I think is crucial with this. What we get from it is more self-awareness. But it's not like it's just a one chance experience, is it? We could come back and visit you again, and you do have programs, don't you, with some of the corporate work, to sort of build on these self-awareness discoveries, and the dynamics between teams and management and that sort of thing. So is there anything else that you could sort of build on for that, how the horses can help with personal growth?
Personal growth is okay if you know what your aim is. But for the majority of us, personal growth is discovering the things that we're not aware of. So that comes down to our impact on others, which has a direct impact on the results that we get. But it also is about the blind spots that we're not even aware of. So being in the presence of a horse which is literally going to respond to the things that we're not even aware of helps us to uncover those psychological blocks that could well be holding us back. What I find really refreshing is when individuals come out to me, particularly some that are on very sensitive learning journeys, I don't need to know the history. I don't need to know why they're there. As long as they have the intention and we have a theme and there is context, the horses will do the rest. My role is to facilitate and to stand back and observe what's going on and to just be interested and inquisitive about what's going on for the individual so that they can understand where that horse's behaviour is coming from. So is the horse, for example, nuzzling my head and I don't feel comfortable with that, telling me that, do I need to be more concerned about my boundaries and be able to step back when I don't feel comfortable, right the way through to, you know, a horse being able to have the head on the ground and eating grass when I'm doing a lead rope activity and I want them to walk with me. Do I need to be more assertive to have that happen? Or is the reason it's not happening is because I tend to be quite passive and let people do exactly what they want all of the time? And again, that comes back to boundaries, right? And how assertive I can be and how I can lean into standing up for myself and developing my own self-confidence. So all of those things have a theme, and it's soft competencies, whether it is boundaries, stepping out of our comfort zone. The young lady 2 weeks ago said to me that she was shy. And the reason she was there was she barely could whisper the horses' names. When we reframed that for her, the fact that she had bounced out of the car and struck up a conversation with me, a complete stranger, told me that she wasn't probably shy, but there's a theme with young people helping them to expand their vocabulary and to give that a different name. So was it a lack of confidence? And that's what she agreed was holding her back. And that's what we worked on. So to hear her use her very quiet voice to, in the end, call the horses who would then come over to her, actually bolstered her confidence, because, you know, she had the confidence to use her voice and she got a result from it. And it was just a beautiful thing to witness.
Yeah, this is a beautiful story. It is.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what you said there is that, you know, to have the horses in those situations and you know their behavior in reaction to you, and then that kind of brings these questions that we can ask about, you know, our own behavior and traits and things. The horses are sort of, they're not biased in any way. It's not like we could do a similar thing, you know, with people, but there's always that conscious thought there of the person that could actually be saying things just for the sake of saying things to get somebody to see something. Whereas with the horses, it's all completely natural and unbiased and non-judgmental.
There's something deeper than that, though, because the way that our minds are working, we're creating new neural pathways with the horses. So you're attaching a memory to a piece of learning. And the more that is repeated over time, that is where the new skill is developed. What we're doing isn't just helping people to have nice times in the fields. We are, as you said right at the beginning, we're using neuroscience, we're action-based learning. We are helping people to associate those memories. If, for example, if I was today to ask for support, I laugh at myself because I go back a decade and say, I would never have asked for support if it wasn't for that horse. Because I found myself in a situation where I was asked a question in a coaching session, which was, Julia, where do you get your support from? And I looked at the coach as if she was absolutely crackers. I thought, and what was going through my mind was, why do you think I need support? Do I look weak? Why on earth would I want support? And I'm trying to fathom out the solution to that question, thinking, well, I wouldn't ask my friends for support. I don't want to lean on people. That's not a good place to be. And, you know, if I'm asking for support, that means I'm weak. And in the meantime, I look at a field of horses who have all turned their backsides towards me. And the feeling I got was complete loneliness. And it was in that point where I thought, actually, I could reach out and ask for support, and it doesn't make me weak. And it's something, and that memory stems from something that happened about 12 years ago, but stays with me. And that learning has helped me. It's in many occasions, asking for support has completely changed my future. And we all have those things. And when we step into the field, there's two things. The first is that people will leave in a better place than they arrived. And for the majority of times, they get more than they expected they would get.
Yeah, completely agree with that. Yeah, it is. And I think because it's so I don't want to say unusual, but because I'm sure in the past this sort of thing has, happened all of the time. It's just that as we've got into these more business-like settings, it's kind of, oh, well, we do the boardroom is where we do the training, or inside with the flip chart is where we do the learning development. So outdoors in that expansive environment with animals as well is a completely different setting, but certainly I think makes the learning so much more powerful. And as you
Yeah.
say, 12 years ago you had that experience, and that's been with you ever since, and that's was probably the moment of change, the realization moment, and then you kind of went on to change your career.
Yeah.
And work with the horses and share that experience really with other people.
The one thing that always surprises me, and I guess now, because it's part of me, part of my DNA and part of my life, is the impact being in nature has for people. So
Yeah.
the first thing that they notice when they arrive is how beautiful it is. I see mud because it's I'm there all of the time. But when you do stop and you take a breath and you realize actually the benefits to being outdoors and having expanse, you're not constricted by being indoors. It's almost like you can turn the volume up on your thoughts, your feelings, how you share. It feels, as a group said to me this week, it feels a safer space to be able to do that when you're outdoors, which
Yeah.
I think is really helpful to create an environment for people like that where they can feel that they are in a safe space.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. I mean, I've just been outside for me is my happy
Yeah.
place. And, I'd go outside not just to get some fresh air, but I think changing from these four walls, we do get very kind of, insular in the four walls, and, we start to not express ourselves as much. And I think the ideas diminish as well, and all of that kind of thing happens. But then when we go outside, it's like a release. Just being outside in, as you say, that expansive space is a release. And I've just finished my master's, and part of my critical reflection and the story that I was writing was about nature connection, because for me being outside, particularly over the summer, has really helped with my writing. Yes, I've learned techniques obviously from doing the study, but having that sort of connection of being outside has helped that writing to again expand and be more creative. So I think there's a lot to be said for nature and getting outside more and being connected with flora and fauna more so than just being in the company of other humans all the time. So that leads in very nicely, Julia, for me to ask you what role nature plays in your life, aside from being on the farm and in those 6 acres and with the horses.
Well, a bit like you, if now that my habit is to be outdoors, I find it very restrictive being indoors for too long. I exclude my home from that, because that, again, is my place where I have downtime. But working in a classroom, a boardroom, a hotel, conference facilities somehow feels very restrictive, as we've talked about. Being in nature for me now, it provides me with energy. I guess I benefit massively from better well-being, even if you're not feeling very well. My kids will hate me for saying this, but it makes no difference if you've got a cold. You will still feel ill in bed,
Yeah.
as you would if you were outside, only you've got more to distract you and it's healthier for you. I don't have to go to the gym because I'm constantly able to do my 10,000 steps. But I also have an appreciation of many other things: presence, being
Yeah.
comfortable with my own thoughts, my ability to solve problems, to return home with less stress, to be a better parent, to be a better partner, and also to enjoy the things that many people take for granted, or I had taken for granted, like what it's like walking the dog, and noticing that the heather is more vibrant. It has been this year than it was last year. at this time of the year, the colours on Cannock Chase, which is my go-to place. And do you know what? Sometimes it's only 10 minutes, sometimes it's 20 minutes, sometimes it's an hour just to walk the dog before we go back to the horses. But the colours of autumn are phenomenal. But I notice them now, and I didn't before. I took things for granted. To be able to just walk through a coppice of trees and stand and just notice what you can hear. To zoom out to hear what you can hear in the environment, and then zoom into that one sound just makes you very grounded and present, which in a time where we're all extremely stressed and extremely burned out and overwhelmed and all of those other words. So we go to the gym or we work out to get our bodies back to the way that we would prefer to do them and I can honestly say that nature now plays a part in my entire well-being. It is my go-to place, and I don't need of course I do need to go to the gym, but I won't, because I'll just walk further. It doesn't cost me any money. But coming back to your point there, nature grounds me in thing that just feels so natural now. I don't know if I'm not very good at writing, so to try and articulate that in words would be even more difficult for me to sort of answer that question as I can rambling on now. But yeah, I think that's what I mean. I go stir crazy. I'm looking at 3:30. That is it. I've got my brain switches off and I need to go out and recharge.
Yeah, I think that was absolutely perfect way of explaining how nature benefits humans, what you've just said there. But I totally agree about presence. It does help you to be more present, and rather than thinking about the past, worrying about the future, you are there in the moment with everything that's going on around you. And I think when I don't want to say learn, because it's there already, but I think we forget how to connect with our senses. And nature is a great co-facilitator for that. You mentioned the sounds, there's the smells as well, and just the feelings of how, walking on a fresh morning, a little bit of breeze, the birds tweeting, what you can see, the rivers, the trees, all of that. It's just kind of it does make you feel more alive than just sitting on the sofa. Yeah. And you mentioned writing there, Julia. So obviously well, not obviously, but I love writing. I journal a lot. I'm making more of a career out of writing. I say more, I've been a copywriter for many years, but it's fiction writing now. So I understand that you've also written a chapter in a book. So you've co-authored a book with other people. So if you just like to just share a little bit about that experience and why you did that and how you found it.
The opportunity came when I was outdoors, and I would have said no normally. But having been so stuck with how I put words on paper to articulate myself has always been a challenge. I think if I was really honest, that goes back to being a very small child, where I was punished for not being able to speak out loud and read out loud. And that still stays with me now. If I was to have to read from a book out loud in front of people, which actually I did do last year, but it is my worst fear almost. So there's a whole feel around not being good enough to write things down. But you and I worked together to put together an article for me, and you placed my words onto paper, and it made sense and inspired me, I guess, to think you should have a go at this. So when the opportunity, I said it started in nature. It was somebody at a workshop said to me, I'd love you to write a chapter for me. The book is the second edition of a book around successful women, and I had absolutely a blank page. What was I going to write? So I ruminated for a while, and then I just sat down and I wrote it. I didn't want to write something that was a story of plight. I didn't want to write a story that was something about my success, because I believe that is individual and unique to absolutely everybody. But finding my purpose was what meant the most to me. Yeah. And finding my purpose was very much associated with becoming a parent, and then becoming resilient and dealing with life's challenges. So I approached it from that perspective, and I was really proud that it made it into the book, and it was published about a year ago. The launch was, it might have been, I can't think when it was actually, but the launch was on International Women's Day. So it must have been around Christmas, and we had the book launch around that time. But yeah, I was really proud of it, and it did inspire me to do that again. I think that I still would love to become more passionate about journaling. I think I've got a lot more to say, and it's on my bucket list to do more of it. I feel like I'm holding myself accountable now. Is there a book in me? Yeah, of course there's a book in me, but I don't know what I'd write. And I don't know more so who would buy it, but I'm not as scared as I used to be about the writing. But yeah, it's an amazing skill. It really is. And for you to combine, writing and nature, that has got to be a winning ticket for wellness for people.
Yeah, I agree. And well, congratulations on getting the chapter in the book. We'll include a link to that in the show notes as well, so that people can go and look that up and get a copy. But yeah, there's a lot of studies out there for the benefits of writing for well-being, journaling or expressive writing, and there's a lot of benefits for being in nature. There's not that many that combine the two together. So for me, the benefits are compounded. Writing in nature is going to give you all of the benefits of nature itself, all of the benefits of writing for well-being, and then some. So nature is a great setting for everything, as we've discussed. Your entire business is in nature, which is fantastic. So what's next for you, Julia?
I feel like I'm just setting my roots. I feel like I'm just gaining my sea legs. The horses are just phenomenal. They love their work because they can select whether they do it or not, which is nice, luxury for them. So what's next? It's more working with more businesses, more teams. I'm working with a lot of young people. So whether that is teams of sports professionals, or if it's one-to-one interventions and support for people that struggle with their soft skills, I am just not saying no to anything. And on my downtime, on the weekends, if I can share my space and the horses with people that wouldn't necessarily get outside or get involved, I will do that. So just towards the beginning of the autumn, we hosted picnics with donkeys for children. We will do a Christmas event where we will play out a beautiful story. Last year, Rudolph had to come and see the horses because Santa hadn't had a letter. And yeah, it was so sad because Joel had to tell Rudolph that he hadn't got any fingers, so he couldn't hold a pen, so he couldn't write. So the children had to help to write Santa's letter. So I'm working by the horses inspiring me to think about what we need to our young people to help us with this year.
That's a brilliant idea.
Well, you've got to do your best, and it's a blessing to be able to share a happy space outdoors for children to come and thrive, and that's what we do. That's what we
definitely. Do you just had an idea there? You mentioned about not knowing what to write, or the sort of building the confidence to write. Does it have to be about, does it have to be for adults? Maybe you could do something on the children's side, because that little story that you've just said there about Joel with the Rudolph is a great little, there's meaning in that story. That could be something great for children's markets.
Well, I'd love to do that. And that's just made me feel extremely proud of that. I'm currently working on, because we've got a donkey now, and obviously donkeys have crosses on their backs, which really leans into the Christmas story. So whether we go down that route, one of my small friends reminded me about the song Dominic the Donkey. And the story, I don't know if you've heard that, but
I'm not sure how, no.
Well, please don't Google it, because you'll never get the song out of your head. It's one of those. But it's about a little donkey that helps Santa because the reindeers can't go up the mountains in Italy. So now we have Benny the donkey. I'm just wondering if I can make a story up around that. But we'll see. Santa will have to inspire me.
I'm sure there'll be lots of inspiration that come. We'll include a lot of all these links in the show notes, but I've just got a question for you, actually, which is a bit of a comical one from my side before we wrap up. I went on a run yesterday with a friend, and we did a very long run, and we came into this field with two donkeys. And I do love donkeys. They're so sweet. And immediately, as soon as we went over the stile into this field, one of them, a lighter grey one, came up to us. Now, my friend's got a dog, very well behaved dog. He was just in between the two of us, not bothered about a thing, really. And the donkey came up and he was sort of sniffing at us both, and then kicked a little bit at the front with the dog. Anyway, my friend put him on a lead, and we ended up going apart. I'm not sure how. And then this donkey came up behind me. And at first we thought maybe he'd smelt something in the bag, but I'd got an apple in there. Right at the bottom, but his nozzle was on my back here. And he pushed me. My voice is going funny now, but he pushed me all the way to the end of the field.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, obviously I was a bit nervous then. I wasn't nervous, I don't think, when I walked into the field. And I'm thinking now, what was I giving off to that donkey to make him push me out of the field? And he was very forceful.
Yeah. They can be very territorial. So they have been known to kill chickens, and they're very territorial over their area and very protective over their partners. They do stick with the same partner if they can for life, or in herds. So, but they'll always have their favourite donkey. I've had Benny since March, so I'm still learning. So he's great with the dogs on the yard. But we have a resident cat now who has a very important job that we won't talk about on the radio. But when she pops around, he chases her away. My guess would be that he was saying, "Get off my land," or "Don't come near my donkey friend."
I wonder whether it was that, because the other donkey now you've said that, was very much stayed where it was, circled us a little bit, but after we'd passed and did stay away. I'm trying to think whether I might have attempted to go up to that other donkey to stroke it, and maybe that was the point where he was like, "Oh no, you don't." Off with you.
Yeah, they're very expressive, very clever animals.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, Julia, and to see you again. So thank you very much. As I say, we'll pop ways that people can get in touch with you in the show notes. What is the best way that people can make contact with you?
Probably through the website, or phone me. I'm more than happy to talk to anybody that would like to listen to more stories, or to come out and meet us. That's always a great thing to do. To spend time out, and if you have the ability to do that. But just pick up the phone or through the website. Social media, I'm quite active on there, so that's also another way to get hold of me.
Brilliant. We'll include all of those links, and for everyone listening, you're on the edge of Cannock Chase, which is an area of outstanding natural beauty, which is wonderful, and there's good links to get to you as well from Stafford and the motorway and everywhere. So you're very accessible.
Yes, thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Julia. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yes, thank you, Anna.
Thank you for listening to today's Writing with Purpose podcast. Having conversations with fellow writers or adventure enthusiasts brings two of my biggest loves in life together, writing and nature connection. I've been a copywriter and content creator for 23 years, but my passion is writing for well-being, and I'm on a mission to share the benefits that putting pen to paper has for personal wellness with as many people as possible. If you want to learn more about writing for your well-being and journaling techniques, please connect with me in my Facebook group, Journaling with Anna.